Good
Hey,
morning, good
hey.
afternoon, good something.
Yeah. How's it going?
Going good, going good. As usual, it's Scott and Simon, but
Simon's
Simon
getting a little
changed
bitey. He'll
offices.
join us. Yeah. Yeah.
Simon will be here in just a bit. He got delayed, but we're just going to carry on. Um, Alrighty, before we get into the chit chat, why don't we get rid of the do's and don'ts real quick? There we go. Be nice, be respectful, be a adult human being. Don't post anything that's adult content, rude, offensive. Come on, against common sense. Don't advertise or promote yourself. We all know you need a job. Don't repeat the same question over and over. This is one that we actually do get.
Yeah.
If you ask your question, it goes at the bottom of the list. And more questions come in, more questions come in. You're all the way up here. You're next. You get impatient. You ask the question again. It goes back at the bottom of the list. Not kidding. Every time we get a question, it goes to the bottom of the list. If it was already up there, it gets taken out. This is how we address the problem of people spamming the same question every 30 seconds. So harassment is not tolerated. Incels, bigotry, misogyny, all that other garbage. And you will not just be blocked from this chat. We will share your name around all over the internet, particularly Discord, Reddit, and a number of other places, Flutter community Slack. And you will find that people will hunt you down and delete you from there too. Last, have fun. This is supposed to be fun.
Yeah. One of the things that we don't have on that slide and keep talking about adding it is in your post, don't post a URL. If you put a URL in your post, no one will see it, not even us. So you need to post
Not
it
just the
someplace.
URL, the whole message.
Right. We lose everything. So post it in GitHub or in as a gist or something, and give us the hash code if you're sharing source for us to look at.
So,
or
and
a
if you're
URL that you want saved.
if you're sure that if you're sure that your question has not been answered and it should have by then, and ask if you have a link in the question. We never saw it. So it does not even come up in the list.
It looks like it does. You see it yourself,
Yes.
but nobody else sees it.
Yep. Alrighty. So we've got another special guest here coming in.
It's been a while.
Yes, quite a while. Thomas Burkhart. He is the author of Get It, Getit. We do not mention the other thing.
No.
It's not even Flutter anymore. It's diverged so much.
Yep.
But Get It is very useful in Flutter. And
very popular, yes.
I'd like to welcome Thomas.
Hi.
Hey,
thanks for this introduction. And if you're already on this, I might add there's the actually even more useful sister package, which is called Watch It. So Watch It and Get It. And with this too, you get one of the easiest state management solutions on the planet. So if you haven't tried it, give it a try. So much for the PR, the adverts.
We should drop the links in there in the chat.
And indeed, I am also sad that it's so long that I have been there before, but unfortunately, always on Wednesday evening. Normally, I have an appointment with my dog, and today, because of it's the 1st of May, our dog training is not happening today. I only hear him barking outside. So okay, I might have to take a look at it at the moment, but. So any questions for Get It, Watch It? Definitely. Also, if you want to hear a little bit about our experiences using OpenAPI spec to generate client code, I can tell you a little bit about it, which I'm quite excited about. And it's fine for me.
Yeah, and I don't know if we want to get into it, but I already saw somebody suggesting that maybe Kevin Moore might stop by and talk about the fun this week. and all the discussions going on in X, Twitter, every place else. Scott, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. My phone kept going. Why is it still going ding? I turned it down. You know what? You got to be smarter than the thing to use it.
Yeah.
Turn my call volume down, but not my ring of notification.
Ah,
Thank you, Android team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's amazing how many different bot accounts Chicken Little has running around
Yep.
saying the sky is falling, the sky is falling.
Yep. At every little thing.
You know, it's wishful thinking by haters, really is all it is. Because anybody who knows better knows that Google has so many internal systems dependent on Flutter. I talked to somebody about this very recently after the layoffs. There are so many internal systems that depend on Flutter. There's no way they're going to get rid of it. It would be stupid. It would just, you're not going to take the framework that your internal systems depend on for billions and billions of dollars, including AdSense and Google Pay.
Yep.
Okay. And
especially the cash
turn
cow
around,
for Google.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And give up control of that SDK to the general public
Right.
in an open source setup. And even if they were to, the Flutter community is in a position to take it over so fast, you know, you won't know what happened. And I'm sure we could reach out to a number of people. It wouldn't, I don't know for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me if Eric and Hixie would be right back near the top of the whole thing if it was directly open source and not a Google product anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? Yep. Who knows? Maybe.
Yeah. Because I know Simon would be, and so would Remy.
Yeah.
So at minimum, Simon and Remy, perhaps even Eric, Seidel, and Hixie. So, yeah, Flutter's going nowhere.
No. And there's others. I mean, there's plenty of others that I think would jump in.
Just take it as also as a sign that that Eric still pretty recently created a 100% Flutter-focused company, Shorebird. And he had no problem at all getting money for this. And so the industry clearly sees Flutter as something that
Eric got enough money to steal Felix Angelov away from Very Good Ventures.
Yep.
Okay. Felix, the creator of Flutter Block and Qubit, and got him away from the biggest Flutter agency possibly in the world.
Yeah. Yep.
Where he was a senior. So.
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy. I mean, you know, it's crazy when you look at I think Kevin did post something on Twitter and, you know, mentioned that the team wasn't any more affected than any other team.
True.
Right. The number of people let go or the percentage of however they look at it was no different than other teams within Google. So it's not
I had heard from someone recently, and Thomas, I think you heard the same thing, that the percentage of total layoff that affected the Flutter team was about 1%.
Yep.
So about 1% of all the people who got laid off came from the Flutter team.
Yeah. And as far as we know, it is nobody from the core team that we know was directly affected or so.
Yes and no. I don't know of anybody at all, and the reason for that is the people who are remaining on the team aren't talking.
Yeah,
and it's a courtesy thing. You don't go telling the public that somebody else lost their job.
Right. No,
but it's up to the person who got laid off to say that.
Yeah, but exactly. But also nobody who got laid off made him know about, talked about it or something like this.
True.
So it seems like that that it's really it wasn't that a big issue for the Flutter team than for other areas in Google.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
I
and
mean, you see Richards,
yeah,
unfortunately,
right
with
before
IO
IO,
coming up, it's not good timing for anybody,
Nope.
not just Flutter,
Nope.
but any of the teams.
2 weeks
Yeah.
before IO is supposed to go off. Everybody's
Yeah.
scrambling already, and now you're going to take away people from the team when they're actually already working 14 hours a day.
Yeah,
What
it's-
idiot up in upper management made this decision?
Yeah.
Oh, the beat counters.
Yeah.
Basically. As a former
Probably.
stockbroker, I guarantee you the
Yeah.
only reason that this is happening is because the executives' option bonuses are not worth any money if the stock price doesn't bump up, and the stock price is already at a record high. So the only way to bump it up even more is to cut payroll.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. And also,
Uh,
and
couple-
also the whole upper management is completely crazy about the promises of AI. So they think they can get away with less people.
Yeah.
My personal opinion is this will be a pretty hard awakening at some point. That this all is not the case.
Yeah.
And it's this sort of typical for
Mhm.
American turbo capitalism. That's the only thing that you really can say as an explanation. There's
Yeah.
no such
Yep.
thing that there is any real reason that they have to cut costs or anything of this. It's really just about profit.
The stock price is at a record high right now. There's no
Yeah.
reason for them to have to
Yeah.
budget cut. None.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we should mention our normal PSA that we didn't mention yet. None of us work for Google. None of
Yes.
us know anything other than what we see that everybody else sees. So maybe a little bit from particular meetings or things that we get invited to, but for the most part, we are just like anybody else sitting outside the company looking in.
Hey, we have one
I
of
did
our
see
old
Muhammad
moderators.
asking about what's that?
We have one of our old moderators back.
Yeah.
The wall.
Yep.
Welcome back.
And I saw Muhammad asking about Simon. For those
Yes.
that maybe joined late, Simon is going to join us. He was frantically running around this evening over there in the UK and needed to grab something to eat before he could join us. So he'll be
I
joining
think
us.
it was his mind.
soon.
He had to find it because he lost it.
That happens. So
Okay. Should we
But
already?
yeah, we don't work for Google. None of us do.
Nope.
Yeah.
We're crossing our fingers that perhaps, as John had mentioned, someone from Google might be able to stop by if they shove their lunch down their throat very quickly. Use both hands.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, should we jump into some
Pradeep,
questions?
if you get a good answer to your question, please say so in the chat, and we'll take you out of the list because you're getting a lot of feedback here in the chat. And again, if you don't put a Q in front of the chat, we assume you're talking to each other. I'm sorry, in front of your question. So there are a lot of questions and a lot of crosstalk going on in the chat. If it doesn't have a Q, it's not for us.
Yeah.
It's for someone else in the chat.
Yep.
Actually, on
Flutter
the
with ramen. What
actually, there
flavor?
was one above with the how to intercept internet traffic and analyze network traffic from mobile apps. There are some already
Yeah,
some
we can get
replies,
around to that. Yep.
but I think
Oh, I'm sorry. We're kind of like lagging here a little bit, waiting for Simon to show up before we get too deep into questions here.
actually,
Are
that
there
would be
any
an
other
easy one.
questions? Well, there we go. Any updates on Flutter Web? What I can tell you about this is what you already know pretty much. I mean, they're working furiously on WASM. Looking forward to seeing what they've got at I/O. I'm not sure if they're going to be releasing anything at I/O for WASM. We'll just have to see. Every single Google team in existence will tell you the same thing. Are you going to show this new thing at I/O? And the answer is always the same. We're working on it day and night. We're going to have to see if it's ready.
If it's done in time, yes. Yeah.
You know,
So Simon was talking earlier before we got on that he might be interested in trying to compile WASM today and do some stuff with that. So we'll see.
Very cool. Yeah, there's it's interesting, you know, because it's everybody wants to see thing X.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what team it's from, the Android team, Gemini, Flutter, you know, it doesn't matter. Chrome. The answer is always the same. We're working on it. It's not quite ready. We're this close. Problem is, you were this close a week ago. Now you're this close.
Yeah.
Because fix 1 introduced bug 7.
Yeah, but to be fair, especially on the side of WASM, I recall that they needed some additions to the WASM runtime to get the garbage collector languages working at all. And this is not this was added, but I think this slowed it a little bit down. But it sounds pretty amazing what we heard about. That is what sort of progress they are making. So yeah. And definitely, if you think that WASM compared to what we have in the web before has nothing to do with HTML, with DOMs or something like this. It's really a low-level virtual machine where anything can run on inside the browser. So and that's actually an infrastructure that is pretty ideal for Flutter, because Flutter normally don't want to deal with any DOMs and anything like this. It just wants to have a canvas where it can draw on, and it has to where it can run its Dart runtime. So yeah, actually, I was skeptical when I heard first of WASM some years ago. I don't know when, but it really seems to develop in a good way.
We got it down this time, Vishal. glad you noticed. Yes, that was for you. One other one I'm going to skip real quick just because I want to make a point here. That we have no idea what you're referring to.
Yeah, was there a question before that we missed?
I have no idea. So yeah, we're going to need more context for that question. So, all right. Here's one I have no idea about. Qualcomm laptops.
Yeah, so it's the new Windows laptops with NPU, the Qualcomm NPU chips, I think is what they're talking about in that. So we've talked about those, Microsoft, and some of the stuff that's coming there. I think that's what they're talking about. So being able to do some of the AI stuff directly on them, local. Interesting. Yeah, I'm waiting to see them and see how they do, but I assume they're going to be the norm moving forward on the Windows side, at least with having those NPU chips in device.
Yeah, keep talking. I'm trying to find something on YouTube.
All right, you keep looking.
Already found it.
Okay, which one which?
It's for a later question.
Oh, got it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I was looking for something too with one of the questions about manifests. So
there we go.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, there's not a whole lot to talk about it yet. I mean, I don't know of any specific laptops that are out yet or on their way.
So, but this is basically Microsoft is trying to run with this.
Well, it's on the Windows side. Yeah, it's laptops with NPU chips in them for doing AI local.
Okay.
More than just small models and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Now there's something. I mean, I know a lot of the chips coming out in phones have been getting AI in the processors themselves, and also some in the desktops. But it's about to become a lot more important. But like a conversation Thomas and I were having this morning, you know, it's, to me personally, AI right now is like Flutter was in Dart 1. You know, we had no null safety. We had no strong typing. There was a
Actually,
long way to go, but it was a good idea.
honestly, in my opinion, it's worse because at least Flutter with Dart 1.0, you could rely on the output that it will always be the same and that it will be correct if the code was correct. Yeah. With current AI, you are not even sure that the answers are correct that it gives you. So it's
Again,
really
that all comes down to training data
no, it's a
and
general
prompting.
problem. It's a general problem that LLMs can hallucinate, and they
Yes.
don't have a chance to know actually they don't even can tell why it happens or why this question was wrong. So
I've heard a lot about whys. I mean, I'm in this every day right now. This is like my new fascination, my new toy. Everybody should have the technology you're working in today and the technology you're getting ready to work in tomorrow. Because as we know, we all have to change at times. Hopefully we won't have to change from Flutter for a very long time. But as
yes,
far as hallucinations go, you can get rid of a lot of that by crafting your prompts and also better training data. But really, an LLM is nothing more than a statistical probability machine that guesses the next word.
exactly.
Literally, it's nothing else.
It's just statistics. And if
Yeah.
you're training data, and as they train on the point is actually they are only able to have these models because they have not trained this all manually because they took almost the whole web in it. Yeah. So now they have to invest a lot
I'm
of
sorry,
work.
what was that about the training?
They took in the whole internet in a way. Yeah. What is available in
Mm,
the internet?
Not the ones there are the training data.
Depends
What
on
you use for training data has been a big argument for years. Some
Yeah.
have tried to
Depends on the
take in
model.
almost
Yeah.
the whole internet, but a whole lot of others, they've been very careful to cut out parts and not allow certain things. And the other thing too is if you make sure that you get rid of the junk or you get rid of a lot of the junk
Mhm.
and then you craft the prompt design is so huge because you preload things. You say something like you are role playing a Flutter developer who is an expert in using Firebase auth, yada yada. Now, if you ask it a question about that, then it's usually pretty good. But you have to really, what I call, fence it in, like stick it in a box that it can't get out of. And for me to do that, I usually use 3 to 5 paragraphs of setup. And basically, it puts it inside of a box. And if it can't get out of the box, it's much less likely to hallucinate.
Yeah, but you still have no guarantee that the result will be correct. I mean, I mean, for us programmers, it's still relatively easy because if I get a source code example from ChatGPT, for example, and I put it into VS Code and it doesn't compile, it's pretty easy to see that's what's wrong. Yeah, but
Right.
if we,
So then you
but if,
go back and change the prompt slightly and get a
yeah,
different answer.
uh,
Or
but
better yet, tell it what was wrong and give it the error. And then what will happen is one of two things. It'll get better, in which case keep going. Or it'll get a lot worse, in which case now it's on lysergic dithiamide. Okay. And there's no getting it back. Don't bother. Go do it manually. But
you know,
yeah,
no,
if it gets worse,
what
it's never going to get better.
No. What I mean is, in our case, we have a pretty a lot of constraints that may ensure that the data that we get, or that we can ensure that the data is correct. If we go beyond this, in really in area of sort of a general search engine with AI, yeah, you don't have these guardrails, yeah, and you get we had examples that whole biographies of people were wrong, or whole people with fully believable biographies were invented. So it is. I
They're
think it's
terrible with straight facts. If in fact it's hilarious. At one point, I don't know if they fixed it, but you could go to ChatGPT and ask what is 3 times 9, and it will come back and say I'm a large language model. I can't do math. Literally.
okay. Okay.
I was amazed. because there are big holes, but there are ways to avoid putting your foot in them too.
Yeah.
No, I said it this morning. I'm pretty much reminded of when I look at the current hype. Besides that, we see already, or we have some half-baked solutions that you already can somehow use. It reminds me a lot about the metaverse hype, where really everybody was promising that's the new, the big new future for everything, and there will be products and a lot of companies that run only in there, etc. So I'm really I'm a little bit skeptical if everything that's currently promised will happen. Also, especially these the AI companies promise way too much, which is actually pretty insane. If you see some of these guys in interviews that promise that their AI will solve the climate change and cancer and everything, yeah, and you say, so sorry guys,
That's the Twitter of it all. I mean,
no.
People I know who work in it are not making any claims like that.
In official company presentations of this AI companies comes.
Sure, but we just said
but
the hype of AI in general.
Well, and to give you an idea, I had a friend who was a lawyer. She worked at a super huge company that you've heard of, not Google and not Microsoft, but big. And the salespeople were selling software, big enterprise contracts. And every contract for more than $1 million had to go across her desk for approval. Well, she said the salesman not only promised things that were not true, they were promising things that were illegal every single day. And she was just like, she wanted a hammer to just beat on them. Because she had to reject more contracts than she could accept because she's like, you can't promise that. You can't promise that. Do you want to go to jail, moron? You can't promise that. So that's probably a lot of what you're seeing. Yep,
it is. Yeah. So I'm really curious where we'll be in 2 or 3 years. As said, the metaverse hype was. Almost equal size when it was really pushed, and not only from Meta but Microsoft, and everybody was, oh yeah, we will do everything there, and we will see. I mean, for example, I use Copilot every day, and I really enjoy working with it. Yeah, that's fine. For this, it's really nice. Yeah. Also, for example, especially what it said in legal for legal. Areas for lawyers and attorneys. I mean, contracts are so much. This is you can train such an AI on contracts as a law. Sure, that's fine because there's no creativity really in it.
Hey, we have Chicken Little in the audience.
Yeah, I saw that.
The sky is falling. The sky is falling.
Yeah.
Garino, we already spent 10 minutes on this. The fact is that less than 1% of all the layoffs of all the people laid off affected the Flutter team.
Yep.
Number 2, so many of Google's internal systems depend on Flutter. There's no way they're going to let go control of it.
Yep.
You know, I mean, what was it? AdSense, Google Pay, Google Earth, all these different things, a whole ton of internal systems we don't know anything about. They all depend on Flutter. And if you run a company or Dart, and the thing is, we're talking about AdSense and GPay. These are the cash cows that are making Google money. Do you really think they're going to give up control of the framework that drives those? Are you out of your mind? There's no way. And even if they were to, we've got tons of people in open source, including Simon, Remy. I'll bet you Eric Seidel and Hixie would have their fingers right back in it, as if they don't still have their fingers in it to a point right now because it's open source. Yeah. I mean, there's no way it's going anywhere. So yeah, the future of Flutter going dark. Oh my God. Right. So who's been listening to Jake Wharton?
Right. So, what did I miss? Have we done any questions?
We haven't done questions yet.
For you. Yeah. I tagged every question. I just went through and tagged all the questions I could see before I jumped
Okay.
on. So
Yeah,
I was
no, I
tagging
mean, we were
before, a couple I didn't see.
back on the AI side. Did any of you see the Vasa stuff that we announced or talked about this past week? No.
What?
No, what's up?
I'll have to share a
Yeah.
link. I'll have to find it.
just you have to give that feedback back to the Microsoft marketing department. No one heard of it.
No, because it's not anything that's released yet. It's both
okay.
very cool.
Oh,
and
okay. So this is
interesting
NBA stuff,
and very
everybody.
scary.
It's
Very
subtle.
scary. So imagine if we just took a picture right now of the screen of the four of us, and then we turned off our cameras and walked away, but we kept talking.
Mhm.
That's
Move our
what-
heads and talk. I've seen some.
Oh,
of those,
yeah. So it was freaky. Like you just give it a picture and then you give it an audio file, and it animates the head naturally and talks.
Oh, very cool.
To the audio. And I was thinking, hey, it'd be really cool to like take that with an AI and make my own Max Headroom, right? Like just have the picture of Max Headroom with an AI behind it to answer questions.
It couldn't do it because it couldn't do the jerky movements like Max Headroom. Wouldn't be
Well, you'd have to train it to do that, but yeah. So that was kind of interesting.
But actually, also always keep in mind, especially the European Union is preparing some pretty tough regulations on AI stuff. So especially on the training data of AI, because it's highly not cheap, not according to European
I see
privacy
lawsuits
law.
coming for that one. Like I said to you this morning, I see big lawsuits from the content creators, and I think they're going to win.
Yep.
Right. Shall we get with some question answering?
Yeah. And Pradeep, I'm looking at your question here, and again, it's so vague. It's almost implement a 3D map with user interaction. So basically, you're just talking about how to be able to tap on things on a map.
Yeah.
Well,
actually, what does it mean with a 3D map in this case?
Exactly.
I was going to say, what does he mean by
3D,
implement?
not 2D.
And with user interaction.
First of all, how are we going to do 3D in Flutter?
You can. No.
Well, you can.
No, but the point
You
is
write your
anyone
own
can.
code.
But Flutter allows you to do this, right? The point here is, like Pradeep, like you say, implement. Like, do you want to do this in Dart, or do you? What is the problem here? Is you've asked for a particular solution, not for the issue that you're actually experiencing. What are you actually trying to do? Display a 3D map and interact with it, or are you actually trying to ask, how do I build this specific thing in Dart and Flutter, or how do I build this thing just into an Android app? Some context would be helpful.
Okay. And here's what I'm seeing. Pradeep, now I understand, because sometimes we get frustrated with your questions, but we understand you're a good person and you're trying. Awesome. What I think I see here, and it comes with your next question also, you're asking questions that are asked in planning meetings, not questions that you would ask from a senior developer because you have a problem or because you're trying to understand how to do X. This is a very vague question that you would sit down around a big table with people and try to discuss the strategy. And then also, how can I intercept and analyze network traffic from a mobile app? Again, that's a very similar thing.
No,
that's a very
that's a bit more. It is a bit more specific. I'll agree with that, but it's still a planning one.
No. Okay. Wait. I think it depends on how you understand it. If you understand it in the question for debug reasons, or if I want to implement my own analyzer in a mobile app. I think these are two completely different aspects.
But this is the same with all the questions. This is how we interpret them. Anyway, right, moving on. So anyway, so yeah, more context on that. Next question. Yeah.
Okay. All right. You don't have to do that, Simon. I'm driving. Firebase's dynamic link service is deprecating. Can you suggest another good service for deep linking?
You don't need one. You never needed one.
That's why it's going away.
No one used it, right? Like there's just no need for it, Mohammed. Like
well,
you could
say no one. I think Mohammed used it.
Well, some
Well,
people
no,
used.
but in terms of populace, in terms of market share, right? Like it's not,
no.
it isn't required, right? And because it's not
Actually,
required,
what did it do? I don't have no
right? Do
idea
you want
why.
me to explain? Let me explain what it did.
Yeah.
And it was not magical, and all it did was meant that you could, it would automatically hook up the Apple site association file and the well-known links asset links JSON file that you need for Android and iOS for deep linking. It would hook them up on its own domain, and then you could then actually link that in with your Firebase deployment, so you could like deploy your website and have it automatically hooked up for deep linking. So that was kind of nice, bit less manual work basically. But for most people, their website is with some third-party company, not with Firebase, right? And it doesn't really ever get used in that way. So that was one thing. The other one is if you do send out a HTTP link and use their system, use the dynamic link system, which might be like having a subdomain like link.yourwebsite.com, right? What it would do is if it came from a mobile browser and it was an Android browser, it would go, oh, you want to go to the Play Store, and it would redirect them in JavaScript to the Play Store to the application page to install the app, and it would use the what's it called? Not installation ID, install referrer, so that it would then open up the deep link once the app was installed. Right? There's all stuff you can just do, but it made it so it's point and click. Right? You didn't actually have to kind of implement anything. If you added their Flutter library and you added their and you used all their services out of the can as it was just going to work. Right? That's the idea. And if that browser was like an Apple mobile device, then it would redirect you to the same thing for the iOS store and do the install stuff. And then the other thing it would do is when it comes to the website, if you opened up a desktop, it would say, oh, you've opened up a deep link. Are you on Apple or Android? And here are the two logos. You can go to the two different stores. But for the most part, again, the deep links that you're trying to open are to like pages of an existing product or service or site. So you never actually end up using those anyway. Right? For the most part, most people want a deep link to content that already exists on their platform. And if it opens up on like because they tapped on, let's say they got deep link and they open it up on their desktop, then they get the desktop site, right? If they open up on the mobile, then the site can actually then go, oh, this is a mobile user. We should take them to the Play Store, right? Or we should take them to the Android store. But that's down to the particular implementation of your site, not necessarily a service. And it's that thing like it worked great out of the box as a full service, but for literally the majority of all use cases, you never actually use the entire service as a whole. You will use bits of it. And most people didn't even use that deep linking kind of thing anymore because most browsers, most people are just opening up apps on their phone anyway, right? Like it basically means that a lot of deep linking ends up being very custom to the implementation that you're dealing with the company, with the history of the company, because they might have some old links you're trying to link with, some new web pages, who knows what. It's very specific to the implementation. That's what makes it difficult. But the point here is deep linking itself is part of the platforms, and you don't actually require any library to use them, right? Like fundamentally. Yeah.
There's also going to be, I just dropped the link if somebody wants to share that during I/O on deep linking, which will probably be the way to do it now without.
Wait.
So
John, time. John, this is a 2024 I/O link.
Yeah.
Yes.
I/O didn't happen yet.
No, yes, you can't watch it yet. It's to the session that's going to happen at 2024 I/O.
So should we be spoiling this?
No, they've released the sessions. They've released the sessions.
The sessions were posted last week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Anyway,
and this is on deep linking.
So yes. Just for anyone that doesn't know, right now, if you install the latest plugin for Flutter, you'll get a new section for deep linking. And if you go to the dev tools, you'll get a new tab for deep linking, and it helps you debug and test deep linking. And that's already built in now to the new plugins for Flutter. And that's why I'm assuming what this talk is going to be around, how to use these new features.
Yeah, I would assume it doesn't really, it just has a very simple description, but I would assume it's going to talk about the way to do it today without Firebase and with all the tools.
And in fact, there's a whole section.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, I'm sorry if I destroy your name, but Yisin, you know better. You need a cue. Or is that to somebody else?
Anyway,
Oh, that was to an earlier question, I think, about the mapping. You're talking about the map box.
yeah. Let's move on.
Alrighty, moving on. Shared preferences versus state restoration. My app already restores a state from shared preferences at the start, so do I need to implement restoration? Well, your app is not exactly restoring state from shared preferences unless you wrote a whole lot of code yourself. It's restoring your data.
It's a complex one, right? It's a complex problem because it depends on your
I thought they're
application.
complementary, aren't they?
They are complementary, but what I'm trying to say is a complex question to answer because it does just depend on exactly how you've implemented these things. So, for example, is state restoration is around temporary state. So it's that idea that your app is taken away by the operating system and needs to come back, and you want to restore your UI state, for example, like what screen you're on. Let's say you start. I'll give you a really good example where this fails, right? And a lot of apps, this is like generally the biggest use case of where restoration is required, and that is you're filling out a form. You've got 5 pages into the form. It says pick an image, and you go, okay, I'll pick an image, and you press it. It takes you to the gallery app, and it returns back to the application, and your form is blank.
Yep.
Right? You got the, and you didn't even get the picture because your app got loaded to load all the images from the gallery. And then what happens is it gave a hint to your application. You should save your state, right? You should save your state so that when we bring you back, you'll be back to how you were. And Flutter gives us the access to that. But unless you program it and say, okay, I need to save all the fields from my boxes, right? Like you have restorable string, I think is the restorable property. There's a few different ones. Unless you set these up inside your widget, when the app gets restored, it doesn't know. And the same goes for like the stack of navigation stack and things like this. Right?
To be fair, especially the killing of your app because of too little memory gets more and more rare because phones have
true. But I'm gonna say yes, kind of rare in that specific scenario that I gave you because that's just a sort of a made up one now. But is so many applications that users have open and they switch between so many now that are also very resource intensive like TikTok. Mm-hmm. All the ones that are like very like Facebook, LinkedIn, these are all, it's nice to say that, the phones have got a lot more memory, but they're designed to operate in that way, right? They're designed to operate in terms of shutting down the apps that are not required and bringing them back when the user wants to use them. That is the whole paradigm of mobile, right? That's what makes it different from desktop.
But my point is, how many of these apps, for example, really require restoration? Because, for example, if TikTok is killed and you start it again, it really doesn't matter where you are, or at least you have to. Or it's. I think honestly, it was the first time. I totally forgot about restoration that it's there because it's.
But there is reasons to do it. Most people are quite. Most apps are maybe quite happy to, as we said, like restart and lose that state. But again, there is that situation where you can lose what you're doing and it's going to be to the detriment of the user, right?
Well, and it's a user experience thing too, right? Like, so I've got an app that I don't do any restoration in. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. It's not a huge deal for somebody to get back to where they were. But I've had plenty of feedback from folks saying it would be nice if it remembered,
what tab
in this situation, kind of thing, right? So, so it's something that I'm going to add. But
a really good example is this: is you put I've seen this also in other apps. You put something into the background. I think I'll come back to this. I want to like last week. I don't know. Let's say it's capturing the football scores or something. Like I was using it once every Sunday, right, or whatever it might be. Yeah. So you go on it on Sunday and you put in your background, and you want to be able to fill out the next week's results. Like there's a form to fill out or something like that, and you come back the week later and it just restarts on you. And you're like, it had data from previous. It didn't lose any data, but they meant I have to now go into the year and the month and find the right day in the app. And when it was there, the screenshot of the most recent app showed me it was on that screen before, and I'm not back there. There's simple stuff like that. It's just about UX and usability, right?
And even then, Simon, I would say it depends on, or you don't necessarily use restoration or the restoration feature for it to achieve something. There are multiple ways if you want to achieve something like
Yeah.
this, and but it's good
Well, this
good to get be remembered that it is there, right? Yeah.
That might be a good coding session for one of these weeks, Simon, to add restoration to the WoW app.
Yeah, we could do that. Actually, that's
Yeah.
not a bad shout. We could do it today, even if people are interested in this. It's been a while since I've
Well,
actually had to do
let's
restoration.
watch the time real quick because we have. I just called questions and cut them because we still have 11, and the reality is it takes us about 4 to 5 minutes per question.
Yeah.
With 11 questions, we're looking at an hour
Let's
before we would even be ready to code.
Let's see who can. It all depends,
All
right?
right.
Let's go through them.
Right.
Another one of Pradeep's fairly general, but I think this one's a little bit better, and we can a little more specific here.
So,
How can I intercept and analyze? What's up?
No, go on, carry on. I was going to talk to the point.
How can I intercept and analyze network traffic from a mobile app?
Traffic. Yeah. So this is actually a very common use case, right? So there's a very common example of you want to know what your app is doing at the network layer, right? You need to know what is it sending in the body of the requests, and it went through several different layers and it added different headers or it changed something, and you want to know what actually was sent over the wire, right? This is the idea. What actually was transmitted and what am I receiving in return from my server, right? And the answer is DevTools. So first of all, Flutter has a specific tab for networking that shows you the incoming and outgoing data of your Flutter application. That is your first point.
It's pretty good. It's really pretty.
Yes.
It's really good.
Yeah.
The analyzer.
So you go into the Dart DevTools, and there's already an analyzer built in, but that only works for network traffic that's been sent through your Flutter Dart code. If you use a plugin like an Android plugin that then transmits stuff, you're not going to see that in the Flutter one because there's nothing to do with Flutter, to do with Android, right? So there may be a situation where you're doing something a bit more complicated that involves native plugins from different SDK manufacturers, and you want to know what's going on. In that situation, you set up what's called a HTTP proxy. There's plenty of proxy apps. The two that I would recommend are Proxyman and Charles Proxy. These are the two. I will find links for both of these. Proxyman is the newer of the two. Charles Proxy is like the industry standard mobile sort of one. But I tell you what, Proxyman has won me over on several use cases. I'll pop that in the chat for those that haven't seen it. Have you guys heard of Proxyman before?
No.
Oh look, should I share a tab and we can do a bit of advertising? We should get like links so that we can like get, was it like referral money or something? Yeah, here you go. So it's called Proxyman. The website is proxyman.io. I've posted a link in the chat for those that want to see it. But yeah, it's this kind of, the usual kind of, I guess, proxy kind of software, right? Like there's nothing really that amazing around it. But it just, where some of the other applications seem complicated, this actually does feel quite simple, and it does a lot of, like you can see here, like formatting of content and stuff, rather than being raw what's the word, packets and so on. So as you can see here, like the different keys and values, query body, cookies, body, the request response. There's a lot of filtering you can do as well. It's just makes it simple. So I won't go into it, but this is the one that most people require it for. So generally speaking, this is called a man-in-the-middle attack. The idea is that you're attacking the security of the connection, but this is done on purpose, and that is all proxying requires you to decrypt the content so you can display it like in the app, like you see here. And of course, if that's the case, then you're going to need to sign the certificates for the connection as if you were the end server that the app's connecting to. And then there's we'll get to, hang on. We'll get to that in a second. Then there's the component where it then makes a new connection to the actual server that it needs to connect to, and re-encrypts the connection. So that's called why it's called man in the middle. It's like an island hop, if you will, between the 2 points. But this means that you need to install what's called the root CA certificate. That's the certificate authority of your software, like Proxyman or whatever, on your device. So you either need to install that on your Android phone or on your emulator. But you need to do that for proxying software to work. That's why it makes it more complicated to do. It's really simple to use the built-in dev tool, so do that first. But if you need something that's wide-ranging, like something like to see what's going on in the background when your app is maybe not running, or when plugins happen, or plugins communicate, or anything like that, for the larger system, you're going to need to do proxying, and that's where this comes in.
Actually, there's one caveat, Simon.
Go for it, please.
If you use an external proxy, especially if it's not a proxy that's running on the phone, that if you use the Android emulator, for example, and you enter your proxy address in the settings, it will be ignored by the Dart network stack. So
Yes.
what you have to do is in your HTTP client that you create, you can define which proxy should be used. And it's a property. And if you do this, then you can actually use any proxy, HTTP proxy app on your PC, on your Mac, or anything that you want. And you just have to make sure that your app knows on which address, on which port is your proxy listening.
I'm going to caveat that again, actually, because there's a fix for that. That's really simple.
Oh, really? Because I was really, it annoyed me so often in the past.
Oh yeah, same here. So the one that you're missing is this. So there's a system called Cronet. Cronet is it's by Google. It's a topic that's been around a while. I wonder if this will open up to Chromium networking, Cronet. And Cronet HTTP is a drop-in replacement for HTTP client, and it will actually do things like HTTP2, HTTP3, and automatically configures cache. Automatically supports all Android features such as HTTP proxies. You just drop this in, and then you build a Cronet IO client, basically. That's what this is about here. So you build one of the defaults, and it will use the platform, and it will do caching, and it'll do a bunch of other stuff for you. And there's also a version of the Cronet particular packages for each of the different platforms as well. It will also use Google Play services, but you can also configure it not to. There's reasons for this around sort of updates and performance.
Does this work? Oh, but it's only for Android. That's what I was.
No. It's not only for Android. No.
Platform Android up there.
No,
on the top.
Yeah, no. It's not just for Android. So where is it? Cronet Flutter. I've forgotten the one time I want to know what it was called. It has iOS support. If I can find the damn thing. The one time I'm actually looking for it. Hang on. I know it's specific. It actually has support for iOS.
The Cronet Flutter had all on it.
No, it's not that one.
There's HTTP and there's Flutter, which
there's actually a support in there for it. There's no. Do you know what? Why don't I just go to the source code for it, and that will tell me the federated package, won't it? Yeah, Cupertino HTTP is what it's called.
Ah, okay.
That's the package name. That's the one.
Wait, something on.
But wait, that's another implementation of the HTTP package then.
Yeah, but it does the same thing. It takes advantage.
Yeah,
the idea is
but it's not a Cronet package. It's the
Well, sure, no. But what I'm trying to say is, it gives you the same things that you're looking for, right? HTTP3, VPNs and proxies, everything else that you need to do, like access for Wi-Fi and blah blah blah. So the idea being that you would detect what platform you're on and run the appropriate client, right?
I need to issue a correction. It's not 4 minutes per question; it's 14.
But I mean, like,
Tom, don't you have a meeting with Bill Gates?
Yep, I do. I do have to go meet, not with Bill, but with others. Yes.
Bill's gone now. It's with the bald guy.
Yeah.
No, that guy's gone too. Well, no, I guess.
Was he gone now as well?
Too, but,
I don't know. I don't keep
You
track.
got hit with the Google layoffs?
No. So, All right. Well, I will catch up with you guys and
Thanks, John.
see you maybe in a
You
week.
too.
Thank you for coming on, John. Hopefully see you next week.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
What was that coding thing we're talking about? Maybe looking
The
at
what
was
thing?
the example we were just talking about.
Restoration.
How's it
Right,
restoration?
yeah, state restoration
Make it quick.
in the WoW app. All right. I'm making a web app using Flutter, but the size is around 10 megabyte. Well, okay. So can we optimize the Flutter engine in such a way the final OP size is less than 5 so that it doesn't contain an assets folder? I think maybe what you want to be trying to optimize is not the Flutter engine.
No, can I just say something? It doesn't matter. You can do a Flutter web app and it'd be 100 megabytes because you've got 100 megabytes of assets. When the app loads on the browser, it does not download 100 megabytes. Just because this is the same fallacy that people have for apps, right? Just because your deployment is, let's say, a whole gigabyte of data for your deployment of your app doesn't mean that you downloads a gigabyte of data to run your app. The two things are not the same thing at all, right? I want to be clear about it. That's for mobile and web. Because this is always people get this. It's this idea, like it's that old school idea of desktop. I've got like a package, like a installer that I have to deploy to people for them to people install it. It's not how it works. It downloads just the bits that device needs, and that's the same for web, and it's the same for the app stores as well. For example, you ship your assets for your app in like 5 different resolutions, but the device resolution is only one of those. It doesn't download all 5 because they're going to be useless. Right? It's only ever going to use one of them. So it just downloads that resolution that's required. And that's the same thing that happens in web, right? So in this case, you're saying that you've made this deployment and the final package size is whatever it is. It says doesn't contain the asset directory, sure. But the point here is, again, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to download all of that JavaScript or all that compiled things to run your application. I would also be wondering, if your Dart code is compiled into 10 megabytes of JavaScript, I'm wondering what you've actually got going on there, because that sounds ridiculous. You can break it down.
And I'm thinking if it's not your assets, then maybe you need to look at deferred imports. And if it's neither one of those is going to solve it, then I'm wondering about your design.
Size is less than 5 megabytes. Doesn't contain it.
The question is, what is he calculating, measuring? If he's measuring the thing that he installs on his web server, then
I apologize. I did jump into this. You did say at the very end does not contain assets folder, but the same thing happens. You said it's making around 10. It's making around 10 megabytes now. When the Flutter engine compiles for web, it compiles 2 versions. It compiles a version that is optimized for like desktops, one that's optimized for mobile, things like that. And it will only download the bits of the assets that it requires to run. So that's like, try to remember the different engines now. You've got the HTML rendering engine and you've got the Canvas Kit rendering engine.
Canvas Kit, yeah, the standard.
Can we optimize the Flutter engine in such a way that the final OP size is less than 5 megabytes? I would say I would be curious what I would be concerned about what the biggest individual file is in your web app deployment, because that's the thing that matters. Because when you redeploy, each file is separately cacheable by the browser, so it would only actually have to re-download that one file that's changed when an update takes place, right? So if you're talking about having like main.js being 10 megabytes, I'm concerned for your application. There is ways of doing what was it? I can't remember. There's a name. They changed the name of this, where you change your imports, deferred imports. Was it deferred? That works on web, doesn't it?
Deferred is when you download only as needed.
Yeah. So you can do deferred. I think
you're talking about conditional imports.
No, deferred. That's what I'm saying.
Deferred.
So yeah, you had it right.
Sort of progressive downloading.
Yeah, deferred components is the name they called it now instead of deferred imports. But I have a feeling that is only available on Android. I can't remember how things got changed at some point, and I forget.
No, but we used to say that this was a solution for loading speed on a web app. Yeah,
I don't know if it's changed or not, but I'll pop the link to the Flutter documentation page on it, and maybe you can see. But the general idea around this. Now, this deferred components, I think, is something slightly different. You can do deferred imports Darts. Oh, look, here, mate. Darts. Yeah, here's Dart's deferred imports. Try that out. But the general idea is that you know the way that you have you compile your web application contains main.dart to main.dart.js. Well, then what you end up doing is with the deferred imports, you get multiple JS files, each for the individual Dart pieces, and then those can then be imported. But that's only if they don't depend on the Dart Flutter stuff. That's the Dart UI package. As soon as they depend on Dart UI package, they all have to be contained within the same JS file. If I remember right, there's some weird constraints. Try them out. Let us know. But yeah,
but I recall that they did some work on, especially on progressive loading or deferred loading of assets and so forth for Flutter Web
they've already done like lots of optimizations. But I'm thinking like if you've got one big JS file, you need to split it up. That's the only way you're going to achieve like a better size, right? The point here, I'd say, Raman, is like, what is your use case? Because if you're trying to put everything down in one bulk package, well, then that's what you're going to get, one bulk package. But maybe you can break it up in certain ways, right?
All righty. And then there were 9. We have 9 left. Are you guys happy with the current state of the support team behind Flutter at Google? What would you do instead? Am I happy with the people on the team? Yes. Am I unhappy about something? Oh, hell yeah. Same thing they are. They need more people. People on the Flutter team have been saying that for years. So, but yeah, they need more people.
I mean, what we see is the curse of the success of Flutter. That the thing is, with so many more Flutter developers, the number of issues that are filed increase automatically. So yeah,
it's like any business. The more successful you are, the more money you make, the bigger your bills. The bigger your bills, the more money you have to make to feed them, and then the faster complaints come in, the faster problems come in. And then you get even bigger, and it just all starts happening even faster. And if you don't keep hiring more people,
but actually the problem is, Scott, in your analogy, that the Flutter team does not make more money with more developers. So they can't just ramp up their
stock price is at a record high. Yeah, they can.
Okay, that's not a point.
Now we're talking now in most businesses, I would agree with that, Thomas. Like very good ventures, I would, just throwing more developers at something is not the answer most of the time. As we know, the more developers you throw at it, the more meetings you have to have, the more development time you lose. But at the same time, there are entire sub teams that don't even exist anymore. A good one is the sub team who used to take care of the IntelliJ plugin. The plugins team they took away so many people, they can only support one now, and it's VS Code.
They do support the IntelliJ plugin still.
Well, they maintain it.
Well, they're adding new features. They did that.
They went back to adding new features now.
Deep linking was added recently to it. You tell me. Anyway, they can pick and choose. It's their product. Anyway, so I just Gustavo, I would say like my question here is, what support do you expect to have from the Flutter team more than what they're doing right now? Right, that's my point. Right, like we talk about bugs, fine, but then it's an open source. Go fix them.
Yeah, go fix them.
You want some contributions? Go speak to them in the chat and say, I want to do this with Flutter. What's your feedback? If I put down a proposal, I want to add this feature. Would you be accepting of that? Okay, I'll type it up. Okay, add the new feature. It's an open source project, right? And all of us have contributed. All of us can contribute, right?
And actually, you don't necessarily have to already immediately try to add new features. But for example, if you go through the issues with bugs, you can help trying to pinpoint where this bug is coming from. Then it will be solved much more quickly. So
one other thing too. I'm sorry, but if you spot a bug and you file an issue, but then you want to work on it and you don't know what to do, which, hey, a lot of us are in that position. Flutter.dev community. Go to the Slack, go to the Discord. All right. Put it in general. Say, I just submitted this issue. I want to work on it, but I don't know what to do with it. Can somebody help? And I guarantee you, there are 26,000 people in the Slack, and I have no idea how many people in the Discord, but I'm sure it's at least that many. So, you've got an awful lot of people who are going to see that message, and hopefully one or two will step up and say, yeah, I can help you with that.
Yep.
So just because you don't know how to fix it yourself doesn't mean you're dead.
Or even if you see an issue that, for example, that has a bug explained, but no repro project that they can easily verify it. Yeah, try to reproduce it, upload a repro project for the issue. You can. There are a lot of ways to help the team in this way.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Luke Pighetti?
Yeah.
His Twitter account just says doesn't exist anymore.
Who?
Luke.
What?
I don't know what's going on.
Oh, he disables it from time to time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but should it just say disabled or something?
No, your account vanishes if you yeah.
Okay.
Your account vanishes if what?
If you disable your Twitter, if you can temporarily disable your Twitter account, and then it will not be visible at all.
Okay.
And
yeah, he probably annoyed someone again, and they're probably harassing him. Oh, Luke! Oh, come on! Luke is the first one who will tell you he annoys people a lot.
Yeah, because he's telling you straight to the face what he thinks.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's cool.
In this way, he's very German.
He's very honest about it. He always has a real point that he's making. Luke doesn't complain just to complain. No, when he has a complaint, there's a reason behind it. All right, we've got a pretty quick one here. Have we mentioned WASM before? Many times. Moving on.
Can we untick some of these? Because I don't even know which ones we've covered and which ones we haven't now.
No, I've got it.
What about the four above that?
Yes, you must be missing something because I've already unstarred those.
I'm seeing them.
Well, that's fine. We already answered them. Moving on.
Scroll up.
There is no scroll up. That's what I'm telling you. I am at the top.
Any updates on Flutter Web?
We had this.
Okay. You done that one?
Yep.
Yes.
I'm going through them because I don't know. I've not done them.
We just answered that.
Yeah. Cool. Stop being unstarred according to this. Right anyway.
That was not. Why is that still starred? I unstarred that over an hour ago. Okay, that one's next. But actually, WASM, we did touch on it quite a bit. We're crossing our fingers, hoping that there's going to be something new on WASM.io, but it's not a secret. As I said earlier, every team at Google will tell you the same thing. Are we going to see something new at I/O on Thing X? And the answer from Google is, we're working 14 hours a day to try to get the code ready. If it's ready, you'll see it. If not, no.
And also, you will see it. If you can use it afterwards is another question. We had this several times before.
I have a friend of mine working DevRel in a certain company, and I went through some of their sample code recently. We've got a meeting set up. Anyway. All right. Next. Whoops. I'm sorry. That was next.
This one. Actually, I think I know what this is about because we got bitten by this in our project. The things that from May 1st, from today, Apple requires that if you use certain APIs, you have to state why you use it in your in file. Um,
has always done this with certain APIs. There's just some new ones, right?
yeah, they added some new ones to this. Yeah.
Yeah. So particularly, like, they've always said, oh, why do you need location permission? You need to give an answer. Why do you need microphone or whatever permissions? This one is about, if you use certain APIs, you need to explain why you want that, about privacy, why you want this, right? And
Exactly.
that's where it really comes into it. But yeah, there's no updates. There's nothing Flutter needs to do. You just go put that in yourself. Follow the guide from iOS, from released by Apple, for iOS, and you just edit your plist file yourself, and that's it. You're done.
Cool. All right, I got
there's
two
no
little
updates
ones real
needed.
quick before we move on. What about image compression in web? WebP is supported. Just look it up. And the parallax effect on the Flutter website is not working. Created an issue. The sky is falling. Flutter is doomed because the parallax effect isn't working.
Right. I mean, which one was that? And what was the one before this?
It was just somebody was asking about basic image compression on web, which basically comes down to WebP.
And AWIF.
Can you just bring it back up, please?
And AWIF.
Okay, that one wasn't actually started. I was just trying to help them out real quick. We don't want to get buried in it.
Well, okay. Well, yeah, you basically, any image stuff normally uses the browser's inbuilt image stuff, right? So that image
exactly. In web, it's absolutely no problem. It was a problem on Android for some time with AWIF, but
no, but I think the question.
No.
Sorry, I'm trying to say
it just says, "What about image compression in web? Basic image compression."
It's a topic. It's not really a question, but just to be clear, the way it works is that the Flutter will take advantage of the image compression and codecs of the platform it's running on. That doesn't necessarily mean that all they're going to be equal. For example, AV1 was added to Android in a certain version. It won't be in previous versions of Android, and it certainly won't be on web. No, certain browsers support it, certain other browsers don't. So you have to pick and choose. But if you're trying to compress images and do that kind of stuff, web, again, you need to take advantage of the native platform as much as possible, and that's where WASM comes in and will help improve that performance. So go maybe look at WASM if you're concerned about performance of image compression on web. There you go. Right.
Oh my God! Somebody just got impatient. They were waiting a very long time, and they asked it again.
We'll get to them. I haven't finished the questions. Right. Next. This is the next one on the top of the list.
I'm driving.
Too late.
Go ahead and take care of that while I take care of this other thing.
In many components, material app container text field, they use helper methods or variables to create widgets they later use on build method. Why is this a bad pattern? Why is this bad pattern allowed here? There's no problem with doing that. The problem here is it's not about building a widget or building variables to build widgets. There's not really a thing. It's called an anti-pattern because people do it to build their entire UI. So they're building a whole subtree from a function. And at that point, the system can't really cache that. That means what happens is when the build method runs, it has to run all those functions and rerun all those constructors and try and rebuild everything, right? When really they didn't need to be rebuilt because of the state change that took place. And that's why it's bad, right? I don't think anything that's happening in the platform is bad. Nothing that I've seen has particularly like that. So, for example, container, that does not use any helper methods. It will use variables, of course it does, because it's during the build. Yeah. So what it does, it makes a child widget and then keeps wrapping it with each of the parameters, right?
Same. It can't be made constant. I forget. There's only one parameter holding it back from being constant. Which one was it?
Box constraints.
Yep.
Stupid.
And actually, I think the reasons why you would probably do something like this got way less since we got in Dart the ability to have control flows in lists that I can add in a list. For example,
somebody else is asking another question about that here. It'll be coming up.
In the past, for example, if I wanted to create a column dynamically, I had to do it to create it up front before I can put it inside a widget tree. Now
I forgot about that. That was my past. I don't want to relive it, please.
Yeah, but I mean, and now we can just use a for inside.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, do you remember making that list called children, and then you'd in your build method, add to the children
exactly,
and then use that because that was the only way you could do it.
Yeah,
oh my goodness me, no.
Speaking of all
I
of
never want to go
this,
back.
I posted in the chat, Craig LeBenz did a video specifically about this, about widgets versus helper methods. So it is in the chat. Take a look. The Flutter team themselves address this question.
I'm going to say,
and
Joe,
about
all these things, they're patterns of behavior. There's no hard and fast rule saying, no, you can't do this. No, of course, there's going to be reasons why you need to do it that way or the other way, right? That's why the code lets you do it. But the point here is to understand the reasons why you should not be doing it and see if that fits your use case, right? So the point here is, if as I said, the system can't cache, you're building a whole tree and the system can't cache that, well, you're gonna have an impact on your performance of your application to some degree. And if you do that all across your application, you're going to have a noticeable impact on your application. Your choice.
all right. And then there were 5. On Android, I need to, and if your question hasn't been answered, we know. Don't ask it again. You get bumped. On Android, I need to access a unique device ID that persists on app uninstallation. What?
Nope.
How would you do it? The Android serial number is inaccessible due to privileges.
You can't do it. There you go.
Yeah, for good reason. And especially after uninstallation.
No, you can't do it. It doesn't work that way. It's not just Android. It's any like them all, because the whole point is you're then tracking the user, and you're not allowed to track the user. That's literally why that when you request a device ID, it gives you a random ID that's generated just for your application. If you request the MAC addresses, again, same thing. You're requesting any identifiable information about the device. What you're going to see is a ID that is generated for your application.
Mm-hmm.
You can try and generate your own by like going and reading like the model number and the make and the version of the software, hash it all together and make up like an ID that is like a fingerprint for that device. But then
I think what they want to do though is track the actual device via IMEI or which
this is the same.
It's a huge privacy violation. You can you would get
especially
killed
on
in Europe
on
for
iOS. It's a no-go at all. Absolutely, fingerprinting
Right.
is
GDPR.
That's what I was just trying to get to. You're taking it out of my mouth here, but that's what I'm trying to get to. That you can do that, but you will fall foul of the privacy piece of the app stores.
Yeah, you'll be out of business so fast because the lawyers will destroy you.
And the point here is that it's not persistent on app installation per se, right? So the same person could maybe get a new version of the software and then ID would change the next time they install your app, right? So there's no practical purpose of doing this, and I don't know why you would want to. So I think the question here, you can do that online, but that's the point. You're now tracking them, so you could do the same thing on Jobs. You can do the same thing on Android. You can go create a key, and it'll be persisted, right? That's not the point here. The point here is if you're doing it for tracking purposes, then you've got a problem.
Yeah.
It's all about the legalities of it. Not that you can or it's possible. You're misappropriating the keychain by doing that, right? If you're doing it for tracking purposes, right? If you're doing it for storing a key that's the user owns, that's meant for the keychain like that, then you're doing it as using the system appropriately, and you won't come afoul of Apple's developer license agreement, right? Right, I see other questions
run
here.
Afoul of Apple's thing by breathing. I mean, I'm not. I would be much more worried about GDPR and other privacy things.
I was off grid, but now I'm on grid. It was a start thing. I'm going through the stars. We did that one.
Will you please? I'm driving. Put the mouse down.
I'm choosing the next one. Quick enough. Is it fine to add, clear, or create an array inside build method? Yes, you can add, clear, and create.
Absolutely. You do it all the time. In fact, you can do it inside of a list. You can do it inside of a column, and you can do it in the build method above the return.
It's kind of
small caveat. Unless this action does not trigger a rebuild.
Yes, that's good.
Well, but you might. But what I'm thinking is they want it to be rebuilt on every frame because maybe the information changes.
No. You wouldn't do that anyway. That way. No, what we're saying is during a build, you don't want to be changing data that's going to cause another build because you get an infinite loop, right? You don't do that, right? But the point here is, yeah, you can add, create, clear, and arrays, but the problem here is that becomes a side effect of build. So if you're adding and creating arrays that exist outside of build, that's a problem.
Not good. Yeah.
Right. That means you're now manipulating your persisted state during the building of the UI. It's the other way around. You manipulate the state and then rebuild your UI to represent that state. This is your sort of a unidirectional data flow, and it means that your UI is always a reflection of the state of your application, and that guarantee I just want to say that guarantee is key to building a successful application, especially on mobile. If you don't do this, you will find you will drive yourself insane with bugs. I know, I was there one day before we did this. So, yeah, don't do that.
And what I'm looking at right here is what I was trying to say before is, yes, you can, I wouldn't clear it though. You can add to it. You can create an array in the build method, but it's going to be pulling its data from outside the build method. Because that's what I was saying is you might want to redo it because the data outside the build method changed. Otherwise, there's no point.
Yeah,
it's never going. It's always going to be the same.
No, but actually, what's totally fine is if you, for example, if you create a temporary list inside your build method at the beginning of the build method, you create you filter some external list into a new one or something like this. Absolutely okay. So
well, and here's the really funky thing. Just real quick, think about this. Is it fine to add or create an array inside a build method? You're talking about every single row, column, and stack.
Right.
A list of children. It's an array.
Right. This is what we're saying. There's no problem with you actually doing these finite operations. It's about if the data that you're building, the array itself, is persisted outside of the build method. If it's just for building the UI and going onwards, of course it's fine, because that's the whole point of doing the build method, right? But then if you're taking that and you're making that your state, then that's the problem, right? So and the other side of this is a lot of this may come from a lot of developers from other platforms, because there's a notion of like allocating objects during the drawing of your UI or the building of your UI is considered frowned upon in quite a few systems, and that is around the garbage collection, the way that allocations work. That's with the small space scavenger. A few other parts of the GC, this becomes like a non-issue for the most part on Dart. Like an array is an object, and that object is very short-lived and for a lot of reasons, and they get turned around very quickly inside the GC without like long-term pauses. So you've not really got a problem with
that. Free entertaining #1 questions were closed, but I am going to touch on that point because I feel it's very important. Please don't ask a third time. All right. What is the best preferable practice on localization in terms of key value pairs? Well, I just use Flutter localization. I mean, ARB files. I don't understand.
But best practices in terms of what? This doesn't literally. It's not a question.
There is no absolutely best way to do it. I would say there are many ways you can do it.
It's just use the localization package and ARB files. I mean, I don't understand how else.
But that's my point. What is the best preferred practice on localization? Full stop, let's say, and then in brackets, in terms of key value pairs, right? That's what I'm trying. There's two parts to this, right? One is what is the best practice around localization, and specifically around key value pairs. And the answer is there is no, do it however you want. ARB is.
I'm wondering if do you already know about Flutter localization, the package? Do you already? Because they're already doing this. The ARB files are key value pairs. That's the whole way it's structured. So I'm scratching my head because you're asking the question, does that package solve what you're thinking about?
I mean, there are several other packages out there that
yes.
offer this. So maybe that's a question.
Yep. But that's another one of them.
Is localization. Yeah. There's a ton of them. Localizely, localize with a K. There's a ton of like different applications and services, and a lot of these services like localizing and localize. I can try and get the spelling of that. They offer a service that hang on this.
An online service for it to
Yeah.
edit the ARB files, right?
Yeah. So it's not just editing the ARB files. They will actually you can pay to have. I'll pop the links in the chat here. Localize and localizely, whatever it's called. That one. That's the one.
No, we're not going to have to move.
So these two services, that's localize and localizely. Both of those offer services where they will actually employ people to do the translations. And they will even let you put up screenshots, highlight where it is on the screenshot this translation key goes. And that way there's context around what it is. Oh, it's a form, then I should be saying it this way, or it's a male or feminine way of saying something. It varies on the language and that way it's presented a lot of the time. So they offer a full breadth kind of localization approach, right? Which, if you're doing it yourself, that's quite difficult. A lot of people will just go away and just go, I'm going to go chuck this through Google Translate. You can, ARB files are just JSON files. You can just make a quick Dart script to load the JSON file, run it through Google Translate, and return you back the translations in all the different languages. I know because I've done it.
So this is the point where I make a joke about Gemini.
Yeah, no, but this is the point, right? Like, but the point here being that there's no like storing that data, and the way that you do it is up to you. ARB is just a way of expressing that, and there's a package that does it, right? To be clear, localizations in Flutter itself is not done in ARB in any way. It's just the idea of here's an interface that you can go fetch getters on that can be whatever you want. They can be integer strings, functions, all sorts. Like here's like an interface for your localization. It's up to you to choose how you want to implement that.
And
the official package
has
so I just want to be clear, the official package, the Flutter localization package, has a generator that takes ARB files, generates Dart files that match their interface so that you can be standardized across your application. But there's no reason or requirement to use that. It's one of the benefits of Flutter that you're not sort of siloed into, you must do it our way, like all the other platforms. Like iOS, you have to use their system. Android, you have to use theirs. No, the idea here is that you do this and you can do it however you want to do it, right? You can even do some really cool things. That is download updated localization files once your app has been deployed. So if you've got some changes, you can download those new JSON files from your cloud, from your API, from whatever, dump them in locally into your application, and then when it starts up, it can be using those localizations instead. So there's all sorts of possibilities.
I would say, but then, for example, the system with generating Dart files don't work.
Yeah, but that's what I'm trying to say. But that's why these other packages do that. Like these other packages have APIs that you'll connect to your app up to, and it'll just do it all for you. Both of those have got Flutter packages, I believe, if I remember rightly.
Another thing that, for example, that I personally don't like with most of the localization solutions. I know why they use it, but they rely on the context to access your text or your localized text. And if you need this text inside the data layer for some reason, you always have a problem, or you have to somehow feed it in from the outside.
I mean, I've had this experience with the actual official Flutter package as well, because it's the material app and its decision-making routine for localization, actually choosing the right locale, that actually chooses the right localization. It also runs the futures that you initialize localization to ensure that.
What was that one? Because I had done it specifically at one point, and you had me change it to something more generalized, like what you're talking about right now.
Hold on, but what I'm trying to say is that the answer to that problem that Thomas was just talking about is that you use a builder. Like inside the material app, there's a builder parameter that gives you a context that has access to the selected app localizations.
Okay.
But then from that point during your build, you would then say, get your localization instance and then set it to whatever backend implementation you had, to let the backend have a copy of the selected localization, so that whenever it needs to maybe translate an error message or do something with localizations, it has access to that. You can do that, but it does mean that then there needs to be a setter or a getter or some sort of a lambda, anonymous function that you're binding that logic together. But it's perfectly doable, and you don't release the context into the backend, which is nice.
One other thing, Richard, I have already done this using AI for it. It's one of the ARB files. Now, not setting up the package, but once you're at the point where you have to start creating your ARB files and filling them in, AI is fantastic for this. But caveat, you need a couple good paragraphs, 2 or 3 paragraphs, telling it exactly what your requirements are, what should be where, what each position represents, all of that. And then test it on 2 or 3 items and see what it returns. And then once you're satisfied it's doing it correctly, then just hand it a whole bunch of words. I mean, like 40. And it'll start spitting out an actual usable ARB file. But unless you're very specific, this goes back to what I always say about AI. You have to box it. You have to tell it, I only want this, so that it doesn't go outside and start giving you nonsense. And it can take 3, 4, 5 different tunings of your prompt, not tuning of the model, tuning of the prompt. But generating ARB files is one of the few things that it's actually really good at. So we ready to move on?
I've got a question that hasn't been answered yet.
I've got 2, and I'm waiting to bring them on screen. Are you talking about offloading?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are only 2 left. So, yep, I got it.
I see one.
Any way to offload computation in layout phase to an isolate? I think the big thing here is in layout phase.
I mean, the problem here is, yes, you can, but you're going to delay your layout. So you're going to display. It's the same thing. You're going to not display something because you have to. Remember, your layout has to be ready to lay out the UI for a frame of graphics. So you've got 60 FPS. So you can offload whatever you like during the layout phase. You just go run an isolate and do whatever how you want to. Once you get the result, you're then doing another layout pass with the result of that future. Sure, you can do that, but that's the same thing as if you do it during build, right? Like you just got some widgets, you go off and do a future and do set state, right? There's no difference. But you're still going to need to display something. Now you can do a placeholder, do an empty widget, you can do a loading spinner, right? You can previous layout computation. Sorry, come.
If there was only someone who maybe had done a talk.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it's not exactly because it's not about a layout phase, but it's an example how you can really use isolates to deal with to pre-compute data that you then display.
That's not the link you just posted, by the way, Scott. You posted the widgets versus helper methods video.
It didn't. All right, let me grab it again. For some reason, it must not have copied.
Sorry. Anyway, so sorry, Thomas. Go on. You were saying so.
Yeah, it's that was an example. For example, how you can speed up the creation of a motherboard set by splitting the tiles into by splitting the tiles into separate isolates. And this is, for example, this nice example how you can manage the isolate for this. But actually, I hadn't read the additional point in the layout phase, so I really wouldn't know why you would use an isolate in the layout phase. That's really not the place.
I mean, the thing is, you can have the inputs from build, and then during layout, you go, custom render object during layout. You want to do something, you can do that. You always need to lay out your children that you're rendering before you go to draw them. So, but you can avoid laying them out and avoid rendering them.
I mean, what I guess if you want to do it, what's important, and that's also what I show in the example, is that you don't spin up a new isolate at this point, but you have your isolates in a pool already ready, and you just pass the work onto them and receive the result.
Yeah. So there's delay in terms of starting up isolate. They've actually fixed quite a lot of that with the isolate. What they implemented? Was it isolate grouping? No, what was it called? Anyway, the startup of isolates got way quicker.
It goes it went better, but it's still, you can avoid it if you know you
of course
you use it anyway. Just keep one around, yeah. So.
Course. But it's kind of nice the fact that you can do isolate.run and it will do isolate.exit. And what it actually does is keeps the isolate running. Well, not running, but it keeps it in memory and then it can reuse it. And that's essentially what the new lightweight isolates grouping. I can't remember what it was. Max from New Zealand Flutter meetup was, I think, leading that charge back in the day. I haven't spoken to him in a while, actually.
Yeah. All right, I want to take a shot at this next one before you jump in, Simon. I have to call dibs. Okay, let me get that fixed. Okay. What about sending context to other files that are not part of the UI? Is this okay? And it's the ultimate answer in the universe. It depends. And
let me go on.
One of the things it depends on is the method asynchronous, because then you're sending a context over an async gap, and that's a no-no.
No, even this is now safer because you can check if mounted.
Yeah,
and that's okay. If you come back, that's I'm really happy that they fixed this. So you, if you do it, you have to make sure before you use it if the context is still mounted. Yes, this is
yes, because the context may, and that's the problem. The context may no longer be valid. Now, if it's synchronous, you got no problem with any of this.
Yeah, actually, the better way, if you need to, most of the time you need people want to do this because they want to display something out of the of your data layer or out of your business layer, and actually.
The business layer needs the context. I run into this all the time.
No. You don't need the context necessarily. For example, you can just keep a key to your root navigator, for example. Then you don't need you don't need to really to keep the context itself. Yeah.
I want to be clear. Like, this has always been thinking. Why is it bad to pass the context over? I think that's the thing. We talk about it being bad, but why is it bad? The reason why it's bad is that there's two sides to this. One is that context might have a whole widget tree attached to it in some way. Like, let's say your widget rebuilds, that context, which is an element, by the way, in the middle of the tree, now has a reference to maybe all the other render objects that were attached to it, all the other state and all the other variables attached. So you've got this hanging tree that's no longer part of the visible to the UI, and you treat it, because it's been passed as a variable to the backend, you treat it as if it's still part of your UI, like it's still attached. That's why the whole mounted check is important. But even if you didn't do that and you started browsing down the tree requesting for variables from widgets and other things, it might work, but then you're working with outdated data, right? So the point here is that this is the context that you're running in. It is not meant to be saved. It's ephemeral. Right. The idea is what is my current context? What am I currently doing? It's always the current context. It's never, it's like when we call the build context, it's the context of the build taking place. It's
every frame.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Every rebuild of every widget has its own context. It's not even every frame. Now, when any widget is rebuilt, it's going to be a new frame. So, but just the context for any individual widget doesn't change between frames. It's only if that widget changes, but every widget has its own context.
Yes. Well, the context, to be clear for the people that don't understand, there's three trees to build the UI. You've got your widget tree, which is your configuration for what it's going to be displayed. It's not what's being displayed. The blueprint, sure. We don't think come through correctly, but yeah, the blueprint. And then you've got then what happens is during build, after build, you have your the phase where it assembles the middle tree, the element tree. And then from each element, there's still a set of nodes. There's still like a tree. You may have multiple nodes that represented one widget, for example. Like the relationship can be many to one relationship. But those elements are themselves implement the build context interface. And then those elements are what are then create the render objects, attach those to the render tree. And then there's the link between the three layers are the render objects linked to the elements linked to the build, and vice versa. It's always, you never cross that boundary without going through the middle, right? These are layers that you're working with. Anyway, it's very much in the weeds of how Flutter works. But I just want to express the fact that it's also, you don't want to have that memory lying around, especially as it may change very every frame, for example. And you can have quite a lot of data hanging around in memory for a long period of time unnecessarily because you're handing off to some back-end long-running task, right? Then you've kind of got the aspect of it's very simple to browse into that back-end context and do things that you shouldn't be doing that makes your code really, really hard to maintain and really screwy, right? Like you can go off and, as we just said, like change the localization or do some other weird thing from the back end of your app, which is it's disassociated from what the user actions are doing. And in doing so, your app acts very funky, acts weird. It's very hard to find bugs. So it's all about these layers of separation, and architecture and application is around having an app that's maintainable, that you can actually build and continue developing, right? So go on. I've got one other thing I wanted to bring up about
actually another approach, especially if it's just about, for example, you want to be able to trigger to display dialogue, anything like this, is that you in your on your main page you add a listener that listens to, for example, to a message stream in your data layer. That will then show a display as soon as every time you push a new message into the stream. Yeah, so this would be the really safe way to do this without storing anything.
I've had this before. In fact, we could actually do this with the Wow Shopping app if you want to stick around, Thomas. But like this, it's really obvious. Like you've got these errors that might happen in asynchronous code in the back end, and you want to tell the user an error occurred, what the error might be. Like, sorry, I failed to do this action. Like, you put, like, let's say Gmail, they go send email, and then it disappears from the screen, and then 5 seconds they're using the app or in the emails, and it says pops up, sorry, couldn't send your email. Do you want to try again? It's like this is an event that's happened in the back end system. It's not, and the front end UI has been listening for any events to happen, and when they happen, it displays it. Nice and simple.
Yep.
What you haven't done is provided your entire UI to the back end saying, oh, well, if there's an error, maybe once you're done, you can use this to access the localizations or whatever, right? Before we go,
hang on, we're not done with this, Thomas.
Go on.
You had mentioned the interaction manager.
Yeah, actually, this is we use currently a version of this in our current project. But I wanted to make this a real package, but it has already the whole logic in it. If you want to have some pretty safe way how to be able to push from the data layer, but it's a different aspect. It's a different way to do it. And
I'm upset, Thomas. It's an unverified publisher. No,
you know what it needs to be a verified publisher. Yeah,
domain name. It's fine.
Yeah.
Alrighty,
actually,
then.
A lot of my packages are still unverified publisher. Yeah.
Speaking on the community, job done.
Okay, we cut off questions a little while ago, but I just want to have fun with something here.
But can we?
Chicken Little, sky is falling. No, but
no, it's not.
actually,
Do
you
you
don't
want to
worry about
start a little bit laughing?
Well, no, but here's the thing.
Yeah, right.
Flutter is running GPay, Flutter is running AdSense, Flutter is running Google Earth. If you see Google move those to a different platform, then this question might be valid. Until then, there are so many internal projects. Google is never going to let go of control of the Flutter SDK as long as so much of their internal stuff, runs on it. No way on earth.
Right.
It would be business suicide.
Before we get off the topic
Oh,
of what we were trying to
sorry.
talk about,
Go for it.
which I was trying to get back to, is this.
I thought you were finishing it.
No, right. Yeah, so for those that don't know, this is the other way, disposable build context. So if you do need access to a build context and you has the potential not to leak this memory that we were talking about, is use a disposable build context, which has a weak reference to the build context underneath it. So this is a way of essentially wrapping a build context and allowing you to have it nicely disposed. But yeah,
Nice.
yeah, check this out. Disposable build context is the magic that you're probably missing. I think it's been around a while. Do you know what? I'm not sure when this was actually.
No, I've heard of it. Haven't used it, but I've heard of it.
What PR did it last? Well, it was apparently being worked on 4 years ago.
Oh,
so,
okay. Yeah.
It's been in a while.
Yeah, you learn every day. You learn something new about the framework.
Oh, look,
Okay.
and state mounted must be true. Something around that 8 months ago. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so that's been around a while, and so there are reasons for you to do this kind of thing, but in general we call it, again, it's this kind of anti-pattern thing that you do it and you're just going to cause yourself more problems. And why cause yourself more problems unnecessarily? And that's what we're here to hopefully help with, right? Like,
it depends how you do it. You can do it safely, but you have to be careful.
it's always the answer is always it depends.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's the main answer. What is 2 + 2? It depends.
It depends on who's asking. Is it AI or not?
Yeah, and also it depends how, if you're experienced, you can get away with way more than if you are a beginner. That's also always the same.
Okay.
I think
fun one. We know somebody who's worked with this quite a bit. How do you use Melos with Flutter correctly? No,
I don't.
We know somebody who did it. How long did Charles work on this?
I don't know. I use Melos in all my projects, really, because I treat all my projects mainly as a monorepo with Dart packages, and it's fine. I mean, you just create your top level pop spec, your top level YAML file. I think the question here is around, like, the script section about what you do, but then like things like it's all around running tooling for me, right? So for most people, don't realize that all Dart projects have a folder. They have lib, which is normally where you put your source code. There's the expectation is one called tool, not tools, tool, which has tooling for your project. And this has been around since day one. But the idea being that if you've got ancillary sort of Dart scripts that you need to run to maintain your project, you put them there. Then inside Melos, you can tell it to run those, like just with Dart, and it will run them over all your modules or your packages in your project, and you can help maintain your project and bring it all together. But I don't think there's any there's plenty of examples of projects, even the Flutter community plus packages, for example, all use Melos, and you can go look at how we use them. I mean, I don't think there's any magical way of saying this is the best way of doing it. But if I had a project that's built with more than one Dart package, I'd be using Melos. Right? That's that simple.
Yep. And yeah, I don't really use Melos a lot because I don't use things I don't do things that are all that complex, but I definitely use monorepos most of the time.
Actually, for me, it's also the same. Currently, I didn't have the need for it. And honestly, I'm a little bit, I try to avoid anything that makes the easy streamlined tooling of Dart itself more complicated. I really try to avoid it.
I'll be honest with you. It doesn't overcomplicate things. All it really is a way of running the same commands on multiple packages, and it does another nice. That's the main use case I have, and then the other one is maintaining the versioning between path dependencies. So if you've got mostly got multiple packages and you have a path dependency import, you can actually have those depend on versioned ones. Like you can still version them, and then locally have them as path dependencies, so that the caches, you don't get the problems with like the pub cache getting out, local pub caches getting outdated for different packages and so on. There's some weird things you get around that.
But actually, why do you prefer path references to just TreeTop references, for example, where you for your own stuff?
Oh, because you're editing them, right? So if you're talking about this, if it's the same repo, right, you're editing multiple files from different packages. The packages end up being more modules, right? Now, if you have a GitHub path,
we have 2 repositories. Okay, then it's
right.
Yeah, so,
but I mean, even if it was 2 separate repositories, then I'd be using a GitHub reference. But equally, then you'd be versioning it, right? Which also becomes a problem. So, Thomas, you can actually. Nice thing with Melos as well is it will turn those into local dependencies, path dependencies, temporarily with what's called dependency. There's a separate pub spec dependency overrides. I don't know if you've seen this before, but yeah, that. So pub spec, what's it called? Yeah, pub spec overrides. So not dependency overrides, it's pub spec overrides. And what it does, it's a separate YAML file that gets generated by Melos. That's part of the pub spec system, and it overrides temporarily certain behaviors of pub spec. And this enables it to do things like have those 2 Git repositories, but reference with path overridden. So inside your pub spec is still the same, still GitHub reference. But locally, when you're building, it's path reference. So you can edit both without having to commit code to the repo until you're happy with both. And then you can version them together. So there's some other advantages.
I guess as soon as you hit some limits, it's worth to look into it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, I mean, we can talk about this in a minute if people are interested. Well, I saw this question, which is you have to how to become a good software developer engineer. Practice.
I'm gonna throw a little bit more into that. I'm going to throw a little more. Write code that doesn't work. And then beat your head on the desk, figuring out why, so that you will then understand why the system is, how the system is designed to work. You'll understand why it works. You'll understand how it was supposed to work because you had to figure it out because your code was wrong.
And I don't know, it's practice. That is the act of development.
I want to add also studying existing code from trusted sources is just to actually just dig into the Flutter source code, for example. You can always hit F12 and go into the implementation, how it's done, and try to understand how it is done, what they're doing. That's a lot.
So you just reminded me, literally when was first writing Flutter apps, you're like, how do I write tests? And it's like, you go look at the tests that are in the Flutter framework and go, oh, that's how you write tests. That's how widget tests can do that kind of thing, you know, and that's it.
And if you it's, I know it's an old time classic, but if you want to get a deeper understanding on how object orientation works, get the design patterns book, the old one. You don't have to use this patterns, not at all.
Not the old one. The old one will drive people crazy.
No. Why? The golf book is cool.
I'll be right back.
But the thing is,
Django full book, yeah.
The important thing is you don't have to use these patterns, but it is just reading this book, understanding how understanding the thinking behind it will make you a better engineer. It's not about using this pattern.
This one.
Yeah, this one.
Which one? You want this one?
I have to say, as a beginner or not sort of an advanced developer, I would recommend the O'Reilly Design Patterns one. It is
okay.
Like, we've all got the same book, right? Yeah.
I have to say one.
We've all got it, but this is a reference book. This is not a book to learn from.
No. I read this book cover to cover.
Yes.
Because
I'm so sorry.
No, the thing was, the important thing is, if you read this, and actually it's also a reason why I'm against probably a lot of newer books. it's not that that people should learn use this pattern all the time. No, the thing is understand the thinking behind. For example, how objects can interact, how you can combine them.
That's what this explains it. It goes over the same patterns, and the whole reason this rewrite exists is because it's easier to understand. It doesn't use just coding examples. It talks you through, if you have a company and it's a duck game and you have these different types of ducks and this, and they have different flying methods because one's a rubber duck, one's a wooden duck, one is a city duck, one's a mountain duck. So the fly methods are different. And this is in the strategy pattern. Because in the strategy pattern, you move everything to interfaces for the implementation. So now you have different quacks. The rubber duck gets a squeak implementation. The wooden duck gets a null implementation. And it goes over all of that in a brain-friendly way. It's the same pattern. It's the same pattern. But this is friendly to a human.
No, but that's what I'm trying to say. No. I think I'm just going to say this. I'd say this is friendly to a human as well. The point here is it's a different type of level, right? This is to someone that's got a computer science background that's been doing computer science for a while. The other side of this is this. I will mention that this is the terminology used in this book is not new terminology, right? This is from 1970s. The writing hasn't been updated since the 1970s. So it's terminology like sending a message, which is the communication between components. It's not actually a message. It's not actually what we might consider a message in maybe modern programming, but the terminology is like that. So yes, it can be harder to read, but this is the reason why we all have it. It is the de facto standard book. Like this is the object orientation. This is where object orientation is most thought of, is the Gang of Four, the Goth book. That's the four authors. That's what.
Listen to the people who have read both.
Okay.
Tried to read
you get it. Simon and I are just nerds.
I'm also going to recommend this book, The Essentials of Computer Organization and Architecture by Linda Null and Julia Labor. This book, I actually first got this book a very long time ago, and it was actually much thicker than this because I got a different style of paperback book, but I got this hardback edition. This is like the 4th edition. It's another good one. But
Martin Fowler, also a classic.
Oh yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
You know, here's the funny thing: we all work on computers with access to the internet, yet we've all got the physical books.
There's something to be said around having to step away from a computer screen. I have to say, I also find having reference material in paper form. Maybe I'm old school, but I don't like reading. Like reading I have to say, reading a web page is different to reading a book, right? Yep. Like there's a different paradigm to that, and I think the idea of knowing this. I have to say it's a bit weird. Let me give you my best example of what I think. I'd like to get your guys' opinion on this.
When you get done, I have something else I want to touch on.
You have one web page. Let's say you've got one web page. Let's say you have the contents of the design patterns book in that single web page. Scrolling up and down that web page to find it, you'll still have chapter markers. You'll still have the contents, but trying to find that place of where you are in it is more difficult than it is to go and have that muscle memory of going, oh, it was about a third way through. It was on page 56. That's where that reference was for that thing. You know, I feel like there's a different type of memory feedback loop that you get from a book than you do from reading on a page.
Also
PDFs are fine, but
also especially this sort of books where it's really about concepts where you don't need the computer in front of you. I can take it on my terrace on the garden and really spend time with it.
Yeah. Visualize the concepts, try and understand it. Yeah.
You can tell books that are meant to be used like references and such because they have these.
Yep.
This book has 2 of them. All right. This book only has 1. You can see it's red. This book has 2. So, yep. Now, another point, something I often put in a banner. I Swear by Christopher O'Cravey, and He stopped making videos for a while when he got his PhD in computer science. He's back. So he's putting out new content again. And he has an entire playlist of design patterns where he goes through this book, one video per design pattern. It is absolutely fantastic. I'm going to put up the URL here in just a second on a banner.
I just want to cover, whilst you're doing that, I'm going to cover just some of the, Uncle Bob is a guy who's been in the industry a long time. I don't necessarily agree with everything he goes through. Clean code and what were the design principles? Solid design principles.
Solid, yes.
Solid design
principles. Christopher Crowley goes through a lot of that too.
Solid is not from him. That
no, but he talks about it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But the point I'm trying to make was, again, it's like this. It's like I'll give you an example of another pattern of behavior and development is test-driven development. You have business-driven development. You have a bunch of different ways of doing development, which it ends up being how you get to the end result of having code, right? But test-driven development would drive you insane if all you were doing was writing your test up front. It's a way of approaching a problem and understanding your problem space, but inevitably you end up redoing everything anyway, right? But it's about how do you get to the end goal? Hold on.
We were talking about this a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And the same came up.
So I just want to get back to this kind of like clean code and architecture. Just something that Thomas actually put in the chat here. Don't try and implement in the mobile app. I would say it's totally true. The point here is there's never one solution that you go, I'm just going to implement this and it's going to solve all my problems. That doesn't exist. It's the same as like saying, oh, there's one package that's going to do everything for me, or one state management solution that does everything for me. Watch it. Is it called Watch It or Get It?
Yeah. But honestly, I'm actually a little bit. It really makes me angry that Uncle Bob occupied the terms clean code and clean architecture for his work, because there's other points, ways to write clean code and other things.
Yeah. I mean that's the same as like anything, like take everything with a pinch of salt, right? Like,
yep.
I think again, like I've seen several design patterns that I like. I don't suggest that people go implement that entire thing back to back, and those bits, there's bits of insight you get from anything. Pick the things that work for your application, the things that you need to do, and implement them. You don't have to. First of all, understand them. Don't just that's the other thing. Don't just go write code because someone told you to. Understand the code that you're writing, so you can debug it, so you can reference it, so you can it's yours, right? If you just go, I'm going to go do this because I'm told it's the best way of doing it, you haven't learned anything.
Yeah. And actually, one important reason why we all say that practice is so important. The thing is, to get a good or to be a good software engineer requires that your brain develops certain thought patterns, and you only develop them when you practice and do try and error. You do a lot of debugging. You really have to develop a feeling how your software works, what is going in there, yeah. And this is not possible without a lot of practice. That's
it's interesting.
One other point, though, real quick on that is when Thomas is talking about practice, something I learned the hard way. Don't do everything once. Don't use Riverpod one time and then go check out Block one time. And it's because you end up with information overload and mastery of nothing. Okay. And then you can't remember which technique went with which. If you're going to work with Riverpod, do 4 or 5 different setups with Riverpod. Use family in there, your was it family providers? See, I don't really use them, but use one system until you've got a really good grasp on it. Don't use 10 different systems and not have a good understanding of any of them.
Yeah, it's just practice with them, and I think the practice. I think the idea is understand them. Is what I say, and the practice brings understanding. Right, and I think that's the thing. Like why is it working the way it's working? How is it working? Why should I be choosing one thing over another?
Yep. Somebody's mentioning hooks. Flutter hooks works really great with ReverPod.
Wait.
And
But he's talking about a hook widget. I don't know if that's the same.
Yeah, hook widget.
Oh,
is
hook
a
widget,
component.
not Flutter hooks.
No.
Sorry.
Hook widget is the base type for Flutter hook widgets.
Okay.
Okay.
Remy
Okay,
was
because-
very, very proud of that when the guy who was behind React's hooks said that he liked the Flutter implementation. Remy was very happy with that.
I'll be honest with you.
Actually,
I don't like the concept of the way that it behaves. It really. So for those that don't understand, like you do like a use method inside your build, and what actually happens is there's a static context that it actually references during the build method, which is fine. Particularly speaking, this is fine because that build context is only being accessed during the build method, which is exactly how it's supposed to work. But it's just this notion that when you're reading that code, there's a hidden parameter that you cannot see, and unless you understand the inner workings of how it works, it's very hard to understand how this magic takes place. So from the outside, you think it's magic, but actually it's not. Right? If that makes sense.
Actually, Watch It uses exactly the same principle. But I think it's not really a problem because it works. But to be fair, when I was doing Watch It, I was revisiting the previous one, the Get It Mixin, and I tried to understand. I also looked up Remy's Flutter hooks again, and I was searching for where the hell did he store the state that he needs, yeah, and he has hidden it really well inside some static field of a class. I decided in Watch It to have a global variable that is explicitly documented. That's the place, so that everybody finds it.
You know, I must have heard you wrong because I could swear you said something just a moment ago, and all I can think of is get it, watch it, and exit. I thought you said exit.
No.
Like the way out.
No. The Get It Mixin button was it?
Somebody, all right. It'd be nice to take a closer look at your bookshelf. Not mine. It's full of Lauren's books.
There are only really, actually, currently the golf book is the only one that I really have on my side.
I'd have to go. I just like tons of crap is shoved in there, so I'd have to go clean through it all before I do that.
I've got what is it? Something in algorithms. I can't even remember.
What we need to do
one everybody uses to get ready for a job interview.
We should get all the official code books and just have them on a show.
Sebastian, we stopped questions a long time ago. We started this stream over 2 hours ago.
Yes. There you go.
Next.
There's plenty of packages.
Somebody did ask about state management, so I just want to throw this out there. We're constantly which state management should I use? The one you're comfortable with and know, the one you understand, and the one that lets you deliver on time.
And always try out Thomas Burkhart's packages.
Definitely, because they are really one of the easiest ones. Nobody knows about it. No, not really nobody, but a lot of
nobody knows it. It's number 3, isn't it?
The thing is,
RiverPod?
Get it, yes, but especially Watch It, which is actually the real state management add-on on Get It, is still quite unknown.
You need to put that in the very top of the README. The very top of the README for Get
It.
I
have it there now. I have it now in there. Good. Definitely.
You know where else you need to put it is the very top of the README for GetX, so people know where to go next.
And you mean I should sneak in some PR that but you know I'm still pissed that he used this name because it's
leaving this conversation here. It's not just that. It's just we're not going there, right?
Oh, here's a really good
Is Ben banned?
point. A general
banned.
thing. It's not really a question, but it's a good discussion. Finding balance between over-architecting and converting an idea into code.
I can tell you the bit
for hours.
Oh, I've got one thing for you. I've got one thing for you, Mustaf. Mustaf. No, good. Sorry, I probably butchered your name. Apologize. Anyway, I have to give you the one thing that always gets developers right. As a beginner developer, you can't really see the structure. Like you just make it work. It's good. You're happy when it works, right? As an advanced developer, it's all about simplicity. Because in the very middle, it gets really complicated. As an intermediate developer, you're always trying to find these patterns and trying to find these ways of doing everything, which is fine because you're exploring that area. Until you know the ways in which these all work, you can't simplify, right? So there's always like this bell curve of practice that everyone goes through. And in that middle area, you'll find you'll have this little urge in the back of your mind. If I make an interface, I might change it in the future. Or I can make that with a generic so I can make it work with all these other multiples of ways in the future. And the key here is I might.
Yep.
That's the thing you have to try pull yourself as soon as your brain goes.
Flexibility, hoping that it'll be
hold on.
easier to change later.
Yeah. As soon as you have this thought pattern of I might do this later, or I might use this later.
I might need this. Yeah.
Punch yourself and say, no, bring it back in. I will do this one implementation, a clean, simple implementation of what I'm trying to do. And then if I need to go bring something in later, I'll just refactor it. And you get scared as an intermediate developer of that refactoring. Be happy to refactor. Refactoring is your friend. Be happy to delete all the code you spent hours doing because you can make it better a second iteration. Right, a third iteration, a fourth iteration.
To be fair, to be fair, in the past when we didn't have this really powerful tools for refactoring, it was way more important to invest a lot of upfront design and thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Now it is we have two really strong tools on our hand. One is really our IDEs that do an incredible task in renaming, moving stuff, etc. And the second one that is actually way more important that a lot of people think, we have a language that is strongly typed with a good analyzer. So even if you move something somewhere and some types don't fit, the analyzer will tell you it's
error.
The thing is,
can't compile.
In a dynamic language, you really have to take care of what you are doing. But in a strongly typed language, refactor, you can always change things, and it will probably work again afterwards.
So this is actually the thing that's a really, I love those points. So one is, with a strongly typed language, this is one of the reasons why you shy away from dynamics, because it means you can put any variable there. And if you change something in your app, you don't know it breaks until you run that line of code. This is what dynamically typed languages do to you. They essentially mean you pass any variable to anything else and then see what happens. It might break, it might not break, who knows? And for the most part, you never want to be doing that because you don't have that trust in your code is going to function, right? There's lots of things that type languages do and have in their back pocket to deal with these cases. And it's like, I feel like you're putting to be honest, in my personal opinion, you're putting a Band-Aid on top of the original underlying problem. Dynamic typing itself is needed, but it's not needed as all variables, right? Like, and I think that's why I think Dart has it right. Strongly typed, and you specify when you want to use dynamic typing.
Yep.
Python is one of those that is evil. Anyway, I spent years programming Python. I'm not going to it has a purpose, but to be honest, I like for the most part, like what I used to maybe do in one of those, I'm now doing Dart. So
I mean the advantage of a dynamic languages that you don't, especially when you're starting off, you don't have to learn about abstraction in data types. Yeah, that makes it a little bit easier because you don't care really what you put something in this variable and it's there afterwards. It's easy. But the moment you start changing things, and you have to wait that you get a runtime error in the end, you really don't like it.
No,
That's
he just said TypeScript. Someone just said TypeScript was the most. What was it? TypeScript. Oh god, it disappeared. There it is. TypeScript is the most popular for a reason. It's not for that reason, right? So the reason why TypeScript is popular. Well, okay, sorry. Depends on how to take that. But TypeScript is popular over JavaScript because it gave you stronger typing, right? But generally speaking, those things like building stuff in JavaScript became popular because there was a boom in web, right? So what happened in the industry was during the late 90s, early 2000s, the dot-com boom happened. Everyone was programming JavaScript, right? It was Visual Basic Script and JavaScript. Believe it or not, every browser supported Visual Basic Script at one point. But anyway, VB Script. But JavaScript ran out.
There's still a VB group here in town.
And JavaScript ran out in that case of the browsers. And because now there's suddenly a corpus of developers that are very fluent in JavaScript and the browser technology and the stack has improved, that's been a growing sphere of developer user base, if you will, right? And that's perfectly reasonable, right? But then the thing is, like, it's taken a long time for that language to evolve because of its use inside the browser and everything else. So having something, and this is why I think WASM is really powerful in the web sphere, because the languages are completely abstracted out for the browser now, right? It's the first time we've been able to do this. There's been no other alternative to a language to use in a browser other than WASM, really. Like, it was VB Script and JavaScript, and that was it. And then very early days, you had ActiveX components that could add scripting languages, so you could do some other various crazy things. But the point is that those all became unsafe because of code executing on other people's computers. And we ended up with JavaScript being the only option. Now WASM has come along. WASM means you can go write a website in C#. You can go write your web code in pick a language, any .NET language. You can go to .NET compiler to WASM, boom, done. You know, the world of language to using on a web is going to be completely shifted. Once WASM goes mainstream in browsers, which it's been around for a while now, right? This isn't like, you know, new stuff, but once it really hits, there's no reason why you can't build a website in absolutely any language, including Dart, right?
Actually, the meaning of browser will change in this moment extremely, because you don't even need HTML anymore then. So
right.
It is.
But there is going to be a matter of frameworks. I mean, like Flutter provides a framework for UI. So the question is web frameworks for each language, but it's all easily doable. We've got still a lot of crosstalk on TDD, and I did want to bounce back and finish that thought that I had before. Simon, you and I were talking maybe 3 years ago, I think, about this. And the consensus, I think, at the time was when you sit down, you start a test file, and you write a comment about what this test should do, then a comment about what this test should do, but you don't write the actual test.
Yeah.
Then you go and you write the code to the comment, and then you write the actual test after you've got the code.
But it's equally that works to a certain degree. But here's the problem: here, so you don't know what interface you're solving. You don't know how your components connect. Like there's a certain amount of you have to to solve that one. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can do this with TDD, but for me, it's more about a mental way of approaching your problem, and it helps you solve that. But TDD should not be it's the way of approaching the problem. It should not be the what's the word?
End
goal. The end all be all, basically, right? Like, you should be like bow down, all do TDD. That's not how it works. The point here is let's say it can be, you could write a test that says, I don't know, you've got some complex logical thing that you need to write. Let me be clear about this. There's some complex logical thing, right? And your overall test is, given this input, it does this really complex thing, and here's the output I expect. Now I can go write my entire code, and I've solved that in test case. Do you see my point? Like you can do it that way.
Test case. But that's not necessarily reality.
But that's my point. Then you come back and write more tests to refine and give you test coverage on what you built, right? So there's lots of
Yeah,
there's lots of ways. To
I
do
might
it, right?
I might add one interesting. I had a really interesting um, discussion with Dominic about this. He was in the past working for a very good venture, and now he's working for a startup. And as we all know, very good ventures is pretty strong on testing, on TDD, on a high code coverage. And I asked him, "Hey, Dominic, let's tell me how much TDD are you doing now in your startup?" And he says, "None. We don't have time for it, or nobody pays
Yeah,
us for it."
that's the
The thing
problem.
is, TDD is perfect if you paid by an hour by a big client. Great, yeah, because it's also good for an agency because you can sell it. It makes it. The thing is, also in our current project, which is a pretty big app, we don't use TDD. The thing is, if I write a library where I have a clearly defined API where I have inputs and outputs, it makes very much a lot of sense to write tests. For example, for my packages, I have tests in there. But to write tests that verify that the app is doing what it should doing, which is easier to see by really just firing up the app and look into it. It really starts. It really gets difficult to argue that you need the hours to write all these tests. Yeah, it's
yeah. I think there's the aspect of find what's so testing is. I believe testing is a requirement for every app. I will say that every app should have tests, right? To what degree it has those tests depends on the project and what you're doing and everything else, right? For example,
Perfect case. Go ahead.
So, for example, is when you first go to do your test, you'll be going, what is the most critical thing that my app must do correctly for it to function? That is what you have in your head. That's what you test first. Because if that goes wrong, your app completely misfunctions, then you haven't got an app anymore. It doesn't have any application, right? In the term application, right?
And also how risky your app is an important point. For example, if the Twitter app just crashes from time to time, okay, it might be annoying. But if you have an accounting app and it calculates wrong, or you have a medical app and it does something wrong, you're in a totally different area. Yeah. So I mean, even the YouTube app crashes sometimes. Yeah, and we all accept it. So.
Well, I mean, a good example of this is let's say you're a good you said Twitter app, browsing the Twitter app, reading messages might crash so often. That's not it. If your app was to crash every single time you try and post a message to Twitter, Twitter would be no more.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's lost its function, right?
So especially you just typed it in and it is and it's lost. If it just crashes while browsing, it's not really.
Posting, fetching, and scrolling. That's Twitter right there.
Yep.
Another thing, though, as far as cutting down the number of tests to try to be manageable, there's no reason in the world to write a widget test for a widget that's in the framework. It makes no sense. Okay. No sense at all.
Exactly.
You write your own. Now, if you write your own custom widget, that's a different story. But here's an interesting question, guys. Using Widget Book as a library for your custom widgets, do you consider that to have been tested enough within Widget Book, or do you want to write actual tests to test those widgets?
It's not about that. It's like you can eventually get full test coverage, right? But those things help you shortcut that. The end result is, do you trust your code? Right. Yeah. The idea of using Widget Book is I can change the size, I can change my language, I can change my font size, but my widget behaves correctly. I have fully tested my widget. I am happy with it. I have not changed a line of code on that. I do not expect its functionality to change. Then great, you've done your testing. That is literally how apps have been tested all this time. You use the app to test it.
And if there's a problem with that widget, it's usually due to the constraints that it's being given.
Okay. But the other really important, in my opinion, an important principle is for me that I say, make it fail fast. This means if there is an error, the app should crash. The thing is, because if the app doesn't crash, you will end up
You never know.
with an app state that is not reliable for anybody. So that's the reason why, for example, I'm still a big fan of exceptions, because you can't ignore them. You can't really ignore them, or you have to intentionally ignore them. Yeah.
Two things with that. So it's fail fast is don't ever catch all exceptions.
Yep.
So try and avoid doing that and catching specific exceptions. And yeah, always throw exceptions, because the point here is you want your app to crash so that the analytics path, that is, you should have this like Sentry or Crashalytics, picks it up and reports it. You get a gathering of what that big bug is, and you can go fix that bug and do that in your next release. If you literally do this thing where you cover up all the bugs with, I'm sorry, something went wrong. I'm sorry, something went wrong. To find those issues, you get reports coming back from your users saying, it just keeps telling me something went wrong. What did? I don't know. I pressed post and it just went wrong. It's like zero help to understanding what the bug might be or where it might be or how to fix it. So trust me when I tell you, it's kind of those things. You want your app to crash on purpose wherever possible, right? You may pick up that crash and maybe choose key points within your application to collect that crash information and present the user with a nice thing. But for the most part, you want your app to fail fast so that you can then get the information you need to fix the bugs and to harden your application so it no longer crashes. And that's the whole purpose, right? So to the end of it, you're then going to have a nice, stable application. Coming briefly back to testing. The whole point, as you were saying, Scott, around the widget book thing, that's just to help you manually test all the possible sort of combinations of behavior and what you might see in terms of a widget. Brilliant. Now, that is exactly what a manual tester would do. A normal test engineer, a QA staff.
That's why I was saying, is that enough, and skip it in the app.
Well, they would run your application, they would change the language, and then they'll go, okay, when you're on this screen and you change the language, that button disappears from the screen. That is the bug, right? And they would write out reproducible steps in a ticket and give that if you're in the team, of course, right? Now, this is fine. This has practical purpose, and it always still will. But the point here is, as you fix those bugs, you add test cases for those issues. You start building up that base test coverage around your application and going, oh, now if that's not going to happen again, right? And this is one of the reasons why once you start getting a more mature product, that you're not changing it drastically all the time and you've got a mature code base, what you actually want to do is start increasing your test coverage, because you want security that introducing a new feature is not going to break existing functionality that you've spent a long time manually testing, right? And that's the kind of like cycle you want to get out of. So this example, this is the Flutter library itself, especially if it's a package or a plugin or whatever. But the Flutter framework itself requires that any changes be tested and be testable and be submitted with tests for the success and failure cases, because you want to make sure that introducing new code now that we have such a huge user base of Flutter doesn't break existing users. Wouldn't it be ridiculous if, let's say, Scott here went and changed the widget in the framework and it was all really good and it was a great new feature. It made all widgets go red when there was a frame drop. I don't know, whatever it might be. And that got submitted. It passed through those 0 tests. And then what happened was there was a bug in that meant randomly it just did it, even when there wasn't a frame drop, right? And in fact, it was only meant to work in debug mode. Now it works in release mode, and you've screwed up a bunch of users. They don't want that to affect the entire user base of all. That would affect their products as well, Google's products as well. No one wants this to happen, so therefore we write tests, right? And it's that kind of mindset of how much are you willing to have your app potentially break, right? And understanding that there's always a potential for that to happen. And what is your trust in your code, right? And if your code is if you don't trust your own code because it's all squirrely and it's all crazy, then you can't expect any change to be trusted either, right? That kind of makes sense, hopefully. I'm just going to rave? I don't know. I'm ranting and raving now.
Sorry, we have been at this for 2 hours and 40 minutes. And people wonder why we're not taking any more questions.
I
don't have time for coding.
Scott,
and
Thomas,
that I made today.
No.
But
But
yeah, we're 20 minutes short of 3 hours.
Oh, we spoke a lot. I tell you what I'll do for everyone. I will publish a link. I will do a coding session. The Friday or Saturday is my answer to that one, and then we can actually do a full session on coding. How does everyone like that one? Because I feel like I let you guys down, but equally, it's no good if it's just me on here. Yep. It just doesn't work. There needs to be someone looking at the stream and stuff, and equally. It's one of those things where I will completely, like, after 2.5 hours of stream, you don't know, like, unless we're chatting on here and having fun, it's exhausting. It really is. You get wiped out after the end of it. So doing more coding is going to be even worse. So I'd rather space that out a bit now. So why don't we do a coding with Simon and friends on another day? How does that sound to everyone? We will do. I'll send a tweet out on the Flutter community with a link and ask people to reply with what they want to see worked on. And we'll see where we can go. I like the idea of a bit of state restoration. It's always something that people are curious around. But I'm curious for you. So I think I'm going to give everyone some homework to do. And that homework is to go check out the WoW shopping application, because we're gonna do some more. We'll do some more work on this. Here's the link in the chat. This is an application we've been using. I've been using the community for the Flutter dev camps for teaching purposes, and we record all the videos and everything else. And I think it might be fun for you to check it out, try and run it and build it. There's not many instructions in there. I think the server folder or the app folder has a README that says about what you need to do if you want to run it and do coverage and I don't know, whatever else you want to do. But basically, you need to run the server on your local machine. You get the IP address of the local machine, and you chuck that in the config on the app. I'll pop that link to the file in the chat. Anyway, so I think if you guys can run it and see what you think is missing or we want to change, and we can make those changes. And like you go, oh, I wish it could do this or that or the other, and we'll just add some functionality. Yeah, there you go.
Simon, I also luckily over the summer I will be more available on Wednesday evenings.
Feel free to come back. Yeah.
And I also would be more than happy to have at some point more in detailed discussion about my approach to architecture and design, if that's fine for you.
Anytime.
Because we have now over a year we are working on a really big social media app of this, and I only can say it's really
I just remember
successful.
I remember the social media kind of app that we were brought into work on together on at once.
You mean the influencer? Oh yes. Actually, in a way, actually, I'm happy that we never this app never got released. Not because our work was bad, but the intended use was really not good.
I don't think it had the applicability now that things have changed a lot since then. That was before TikTok.
Exactly. Yeah.
The world has changed. But yeah, anyway,
it was actually sort of Tinder for influencers.
Yeah, basically. Someone asked us to, for those that don't know, someone asked us to help them build an app for their startup in Flutter. And there's 3 or 4 of us from the community working on this project for, I don't know, about a year or something. I think we were promised money that never turned up. In the end, I think it dried up and some other things, and people weren't paid, and it all went a bit sour, and it all got dropped.
And we learned one really important thing, that the
hype
for it is this one, but the hype about microservice architecture is really not a good approach unless you are the size of Netflix or something like that.
Yeah, that's true. Right, so I'm gonna let's park it here. I'm hoping everyone had a great time.
Yep.
If you've I'll post the link shortly in a minute. Literally, I'll be doing that after the show on
Yep.
Twitter. So watch the Flutter Community Twitter channel, and I'll also post in the YouTube community for those people that just follow us on YouTube, and hopefully, yeah, that'll go out well.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you again same time next week.
Bye bye.
All right, bye for now.